Throughout Ocarina of Time, there's Rauru, Soraya, Darunia, Ruto, Impa, Nuburu, and even though Zelda was the Sage of Time, I'm not going to be including her. In A Link Between Worlds, there's Gully, Ceres, Auron, Rosso, Irene, Osfala, and Impa. In The Wind Waker, there's Larudo, Fado, Medley, and Makar. In Twilight Princess, the sages don't have different characteristics, but there are 6 of them. In Spirit Tracks, there's Angine, Gaige, Steam, Carbon, Embrose, and Rail. Of all the sources I've looked at between the Hyrule Historia and other Zelda websites, I've determined that the 6 sages from Ocarina of Time are the original ancestors of every other sage to come. I'm going to start by comparing these sages with the sages from A Link Between Worlds. Even though he is human, he has the physique of a Goron and the Goron symbol on his belt. This is without a doubt Darunia. But I find it interesting that Rosso knows he is a sage before anyone else. This has evidence towards Rauru, but there is too much evidence on Darunia's side. I have determined that Rosso is a descendant of Darunia. Besides she is the only Zora sage, there is not that much else about Auron, only that she is Queen Zora and that she cares for her people much like Princess Ruto. I have determined that Auron is a descendant of Ruto. Since Irene was found in a desert when you rescue her, the only possible sage I could be going with this is Nuburu. She is also a witch. This may not connect with the Gerudo unless you think about it. Magic was commonly practiced by the Gerudo, like the twin witches Coom and Kotek. And how else would the Gerudo get their magic reward for Link and Epona? I'm talking about the Ice Arrows. There's not that much physically bonding Irene to Nuburu, except that they love gemstones. Irene has a pair of crystal earrings and Nuburu has gems all about. I have determined that Irene is a descendant of Nuburu. Ceres is connected to Soraya as they both have green hair and green eyes. Their names are also similar. Ceres' painting is also found in the Dark Woods opposite of the Lost Woods, connecting her with nature. But I'm not done with Soraya yet. Since Gully is Kokiri-like in appearance, and in A Link to the Past, the boy that plays Ocarina looks a lot like Gully, that would connect him to Forest and Soraya. Now, even though I already said that Ceres was descendant of Soraya, it would be impossible to go from 6 sages in Ocarina of Time to 7 sages in A Link Between Worlds. I have determined that Soraya has 2 descendants, Ceres and Gully. At first glance, you think that Osfala would be a descendant of Rauru by appearance, but that's just because of the yellow robe and the association of yellow and light. When we look at the physical appearance, Osfala is tall with white hair and green eyes. Rauru is somewhat short, white hair, but this is due to age and has blue eyes. There are differences and similarities, but I think there are stronger similarities with Osfala and Impa. Sheikah are described as tall with white hair. The only mental connection would be that they don't like to stay in hiding. Osfala knew he was a sage and wanted to deal with his problems first, and Impa had been moving around Hyrule helping Link. I have determined that Osfala is the descendant of Impa. Now that Osfala is connected to the past Impa, the only sage to connect present Impa with is Rauru. They are similar physically as they are both old and short. They also bear a Triforce on their robe. They both have pointed ears and stern expressions. The mental attributes bonding Impa and Rauru is that they both act like a wise teacher or elder. They don't have that many feelings, besides sternness and being wise. I have determined that the present Impa is a descendant of Rauru. Please note that the sages I'm going by and comparing them is how I see them in the official Zelda timeline. So I cannot compare sages to different timelines, as that is impossible. As you know about the sages from Ocarina of Time, over the past years you come to Twilight Princess, and these sages have all died. The way that you get the ghost-like sages from Twilight Princess is those are the spirits from the original sages. And the reason behind that is that Link, Zelda, and Ganon only get descendants is because that Ganon's curse states that all of his descendants will come bring darkness upon Link's and Zelda's descendants. There is nothing in any Zelda game that sages actually do get descendants. In the Wind Waker, when you first get the Master Sword, you have to power it up by going to Laruto and Fado, the two sages of Wind and Earth. But they're dead, so you have to find their descendants, Medley and Makar, which are conveniently in the same game. I would say Medley and Makar are direct descendants of Laruto and Fado, but that wouldn't be entirely correct, because they're not even of the same race or tribe. Of the two, let's start off with Makar. If you have played Ocarina of Time, you might or might not remember a character named Fado in the Kokiri Forest. I'm not going to say anything important about her now, but taking the fact that she is unique from every other Kokiri character as she got her own design. Does her name Fado sound familiar? Haha, I thought it would. But before I get into how these two are connected, let's go back to Ocarina of Time. Early in the development of Ocarina of Time, instead of first there being a forest and water temple, there was going to be a wind and ice temple. And before, when I said that the Fado from Ocarina of Time had her own design, she was originally supposed to be the Sage of Wind. After a little bit of development, the idea was scrapped. And then they made Soraya and the Forest Temple. Although it may just be a coincidence that there's a Fado in Ocarina of Time and in Wind Waker, as Nintendo often reuses ideas that they don't use in original games. Nintendo's intention on this is a mystery, but when I was digging in Nintendo websites, I found a little theory that when the world flooded, all the Kokiri turned into Koroks. And that would relate Fado to Makar. Laruto from Wind Waker and Princess Ruto from Ocarina of Time both share a similar name. I believe that since Laruto is wearing some sort of golden headpiece, that she was part of some Zora royalty. And that the Zoras and the Hylians are alike in the fact that they keep on naming their princesses after the first. So it would make sense that Laruto is based off of Princess Ruto. That would mean that Princess Ruto is the ancestor of Laruto and Medley. I also like the fact that Makar and Medley come from Soraya and Ruto, who come from the forest and the water. Why this is significant is because the forest and water are two of the most life-sustaining places on Earth. And when Link goes to restore the Master Sword, it's like him putting life into the Master Sword. And I thought that was pretty cool. In the Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks, there are 6 sages: Gaige, Steam, Carbon, Ambrose, Rail, and Angine. In the Hyrule Historia, there is concept art for a 7th sage, and it is rumored that this could have been the sage of the Realm of Shadow, but the idea was scrapped. The only sage that has a lot of backstory is Angine, so the only thing we can relate them on is their appearance and their surroundings. When we look at Gaige, we see a very wonderful thing: a white man with a green afro. And just like it would suggest, Gaige is a very relaxed person. He is also the Sage of the Forest Realm. This is without a doubt Soraya. Steam is a guy with a great beard and an easygoing attitude. And although every other sage in Spirit Tracks has a specific element that relates to their ancestors, Steam doesn't, as there is no Snow Realm in Ocarina of Time, but also as there is no Light Realm in Spirit Tracks. And Rauru and Steam seem like a good match, so I'm going to go with that. Just note that this is not the final artwork that was in the game. Carbon is a guy that acts like he doesn't care, as he likes to spend time by himself with his bird friends. Although when Link asks for help, he does give help. The only thing that would compare him to his ancient sage counterpart, Ruto, would be that he is the sage of the Sea Realm. The only thing connecting this guy with the awesome nosebeard to Darunia is their love for hairstyles, and that Ambrose is part of the Fire Realm. Note that this is not the final artwork that featured in the game. This is Rail, and he has a passion for cuckoos and saving humanity. He is of the Sand Realm, and that would connect him to Nabooru. Angine is a sweet old lady that takes care of the Tower of Spirits. The only sage to connect her to would be Zelda, the Sage of Time. We know nothing of this mystery sage except that she would have been part of the Shadow Realm. And so Impa wouldn't have a descendant. Or maybe she would. We don't know what happened to this mystery woman.